Your Ohio State Buckeyes open the season with a win, beating the Golden Gophers 45-31. I am Jay Stevens. Beside me, it's Jeff Hunt from the Off the Ball Network, and we are here to instantly analyze and break down what we just watched.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, you heard us right at the beginning. The Buckeyes beat the Golden Gophers. Didn't look pretty throughout portions of the game, but myself, host of Locked On Buckeyes, got a guy next to me, Jeff Hunt from the Off the Ball Network, who is here to be the first guest. We won't always have a guest for our live breakdown shows right here on the YouTube, but this one, my guy Jeff Hunt is here with me, guys. Ohio State won the game, 45-31. I think they were down at halftime, 14-10. Second half was a different story. A lot of the same, but still a different story. Jeff, I don't know how to really open this show because I got my own thoughts on it. You have yours. They won the game. Let's just start with the positive. Ohio State won the game.
Let's start with the overall takeaway, and this is what I keep saying. Ohio State went on the road against a very good, which I had them underestimated. Now I think of a really, really good conference opponent and got the win by 14 in the rain. And that's where we're starting. I said this earlier on Twitter. It felt like we played a Week 8 game before Labor Day with a 19-year-old quarterback.
Yeah. Week 8 game before Labor Day, 19-year-old quarterback, all of the age things, all of the youthful things about CJ Stroud. And we could sit here and rip on him all day long and talk about how he played bad, he looked like this, he looked like that. But honestly, Jeff, when you look down to it, he kind of opened the game like you would have expected a guy who had never played a football game in college before. Well, never started a college football game before. He kind of opened that game like that hostile crowd. The crowd was loud for 50,000 fans. It seemed louder than 50,000 fans. And I think he kind of opened the game in a way that we kind of expected. Well, some would have expected. You don't want to have that many overthrown passes or a pass to Garrett Wilson that was just passes outstretched hands. But those are the things you kind of get used to. You may have to expect when you get a guy starting his first college football game.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he started the game really well. I mean, he this is always the byproduct of being a fan of such a great team as Ohio State is that, the last thing we remember is 2 years of Justin Fields, which were two of the best years we've ever seen at Ohio State at quarterback. So obviously the kid's going to look like the quote unquote deer in the headlights and all that. Thought he started great. And something that, I don't think that it was talked about enough because, you don't want to build in excuses, but I just know as somebody that lives in Ohio, we're talking about a kid that's 19 years old from Ranch Cucamonga, California. This might be the first time that he's played in a dreary, kind of rainy, quote unquote, crappy day like this. And the one thing that he couldn't do, and we know this, he couldn't turn the ball over. So every throw he makes, he's probably squeezing the ball a little harder. He's probably questioning the grip on it and all these things. And especially I live in Ohio. I live, right down the road from where these guys practice. They have not played in these conditions all summer. This very well could be the first time that Stroud has faced just the environmental conditions. The football probably felt weird, and this. I think that's just an overwhelming factor on the way he played. I remember, the famous 2005 Troy Smith game. He goes to Penn State. The weather couldn't have been worse. He takes a bad loss there, and I felt the same way then. And that's just what I just couldn't get past that all night. I even texted a friend of mine that was at the game, and I'm like, "Tell me about the weather." And he was like, "Yeah, it's kind of iffy. It pours down rain, then it lets up, then it rains again." And when you're talking about a team about Ohio State that, let's just say it, they can't lose a game. I think you squeeze the ball tighter. I think you may wait one more second, all these things. Overall, I thought he played a really good game. I thought Ryan Day, I hope we get into that. I thought Ryan Day called a really good game. So I think there's a lot of positives to come out of this. As a fan watching it, yeah, I'm pulling my hair out. I'm talking about bringing a quarterback, somebody off the bench, give Stroud a break. He's not ready for the moment. As an analyst, when I really look at it, he went on the road in the rain and got a conference win and had 4 touchdowns at 19 years old, and he's never thrown a pass in college football. It's just two sides of the coin, Jay.
It is. And I think as a fan, you may be sitting there, especially in today's climate where everything is boom. If it's not working quickly, we're getting rid of it very, very quickly. I think sometimes as a coach and as an analyst, you have to really just back away from the current climate and say, what's best for my football team? I always think back to what happened last year in the Red River shootout. Spencer Rattler struggled against Texas. Lincoln Riley benched his starting quarterback. He took him out and benched him. But that was a teachable moment for Spencer Rattler, who many people have either been high on or not high on based off his performance and how they view him from QB1, the documentary on the Netflix. And so Lincoln Riley said, hey, man, you're not playing like I need you to do to win this game, not win the championship or the Big 12, to win this game. So I'm going to bench you. I don't think throughout any portion of the game, we saw Ryan Day panic and say, Stroud, I don't think you can win this game only. The one that matters right now, I don't think you can win this game. And I think Ryan Day and that confidence that he showed with CJ Stroud, knowing the climate that we live in, he said, yeah, I got guys behind you that are really good, but you've won this battle all year long. We want to see you battle right now. And CJ Stroud got some help from the receivers. You got to give credit to the offensive line, man, because those big boys up front were literally moving the defense and controlling the front of Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I think there's a ton of positives to look at, like all the things that I looked for coming into the game. The offensive line, of course. This is the thing when you're in one of these football factories, like your players are always going to be young. You're always losing guys to the NFL draft. We're never going to get this. Like full credit to Minnesota. They've got a full-grown adult, front line, tight ends, and all that. They're huge. They're experienced. They're not gonna get rattled. They're not gonna get shaken, and that's great. You can't put that together at the Alabamas, at the Ohio States, at the Clemsons. It's just the turnover. So you're constantly mixing and matching. So that's why starting with a conference game is so huge. I thought the offensive line looked really good. I mean, everything was there. This is what I said, and people took it as a negative. But what I was trying to compare is like, not much change. If Justin Fields is quarterback in that game, even last year's Justin Fields, they're up 30 points, and it's not even a blink. Everything was the same. CJ Stroud's just a young guy, and he's got to learn to recognize. He's got to learn to trust these receivers. He hit the tight end for one play, which really made me happy, which was a huge play in the game. He missed a couple throws that Fields just didn't typically miss, and I'm only comparing to Fields. That's the last quarterback. If we want to go to Haskins, whoever we want to compare him to. And that's what I told everybody. I said, I'm not saying that Stroud can't have a productive life and be a great kid. I'm simply saying he had some struggles, especially in the second quarter of that football game. Thought the offensive line looked great. The receivers are beyond pros. That really bailed him out of the game, but that's exactly what recruiting does. There was a one point in this game, especially when Henderson scores a touchdown, I'm like, recruiting won this game. And that was the difference. But that's, when we play Alabama, it's the same thing. If you've got that one extra guy or a guy that has that extra gear, that's the difference in the game. And Minnesota just didn't have it. Of course, if we switch personnel or whatever, yeah, Minnesota wins a game because they're going to have better personnel. I understand that. That's college football. I won't apologize for it.
No, man, this game here, the offense, the recruiting, the defense that we're going to talk about here in a second, it is recruiting. Mm-hmm. I think we saw how much Ryan Day trusts and how much he believes the team needs the 3 starting receivers to be successful. Because with as much as we saw the defense kind of rotate quite a bit, we didn't see that with the receivers, didn't see that with the offensive line. Primarily saw Ruckert and Stover at tight end. You saw 4 of the 5 running backs in this game. I think the rotation for running backs should be more of what we saw in the second half than the first half. I understand you want to get the guys on the field. But as you saw second half, you saw primarily Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson And that's when things started to open up for the offense, when you only had 2 guys running the ball, not 4.
Yeah, I was surprised by that. And, once again, I said that when I'm interacting with everybody. I said, the running back rotation was odd. I thought Williams, which when he broke that first one away, I thought the game was going to be out of hand, because I'm like, wait a minute, this is the guy that we're calling the bowling ball, and he's outrunning every player on Minnesota's defense. And then, when people question rotation, I do understand that. But here's the problem. You can't build the depth and the talent of a backfield that Ohio State has by sticking with one player. Like on the other side of the coin, we saw what Minnesota did. They looked great. They were running the ball down our throat. But, when their starter goes down, which I hope the kid's all right. What an amazing game, played by him. But the fact of the matter is, you don't have 3-4 stars behind him. So, you've got to toe that line. Ryan Day can't just, stick with the guy with the hot hand, because then he's got 3 running backs that might be in the transfer portal next year. And that's just college football. It's the way it is. There's nothing we can do about it. It's different now than it ever was. So I honestly believe that some of the rotation stuff isn't as much anything other than, hey, these kids have worked hard all summer. We got to give them a chance. Typically, it's against, a lesser opponent than Minnesota. But it's just the facts of the business that Ryan Day is in. And it's tough, and I feel for him, but it is what he doesn't have the advantage of Fleck of going all out, sticking with these guys and just trying to win a game. He has to impress 16-year-olds right now, which is just the way it is with these programs.
Jeff, I was thinking about something else before we get to the defense. We got to give credit to where credit is due, and hats off to Mo Ibrahim, because that young man, I think I saw at one point at the end of the third quarter, this is like the final minute, he had 29 carries for 159 on the ground and 2 touchdowns. And coming off a season where he had over 200 carries, over 1,000 rushing yards in 7 games. So you mean to tell me last year he had over 200 carries, over 1,000 yards in 7 games? He would have probably put up over 200 in this game if he played in the fourth quarter.
Absolutely.
Hats off to this young man, because that defensive front from Ohio State, it's not anything to just laugh at and say, well, Tyreek Smith at the end and Zach Harrison at the end and Garrett and Jackson and Vincent and all these guys that are there on the D tackles. Yeah, we can just walk all over them and run. No, those are grown men. And the grown men of Minnesota, their O-line, 6, sometimes 7 offensive linemen, offset sometimes, running weak side for a touchdown. Hats off to Ibrahim, hats off to that offensive line, and hats off to PJ Fleck for trusting those big hogs up front and saying, look, the only way we can win this game is by dominating the time of possession and controlling the line of scrimmage. You guys did a phenomenal job. It just really showed. You mentioned the recruiting. Ohio State has better players, and it showed in the second half.
Yeah, that was it. Once again, I know this isn't locked on Gophers, but all credit to them. Ibrahim, it was just, you appreciate what you see on the field. I thought Fleck did I've been a little down on Fleck, especially last year. They really didn't have a great year coming off that wonderful 2019 campaign. I was wrong. He was ready. He had the only game plan that he had for this game. Tanner Morgan played great. I thought he did everything he needed to win. And it all came down to, Garrett didn't go pro last year. So essentially I always look at it this way. You've got an NFL player on the defensive line, yeah. and he probably jumped up. What do we think? He jumped up 10 spots just by how he grabbed that ball out of the air and then runs to the goal line. That was the difference in the game. Olave is a pro. That's the difference in the game. Wilson's a pro. Like, if you look at the touchdowns scored, the young guys, we don't know, but 3 of them were the guys that absolutely could be in the NFL right now. I thought Day coached a good game once again. We'll get into the defense. I didn't think, Coombs had a horrible game. The fact of the matter is, if you have better players, it's just the difference sometimes. And, it's just the way it is. I'm not going to make any excuses for it. Sometimes, what they say, sometimes you got the horses.
The defense, man, let's get to that right quickly. I was going to try to wait as long as I could to get there, but I see those of you that are joining in on the conversation on YouTube, keep joining in. If you have a comment or two, join the conversation there on the chat. That's greatly appreciated. You guys chime in. We'll chime in, kind of comment back and forth. The defense, to me, you got to give credit to Ibrahim like we just did in the offensive line. Tanner Morgan really being steady throughout the entire game. You know what you're going to get from him. And I think PJ Fleck early on, I think it was Joe Clapp mentioned that PJ Fleck looks at Tanner Morgan saying he's a future offensive coordinator in college football. I think that you see some signs of that now. Doesn't look like a guy's going to play 10 years in the NFL, which isn't bad at all. He's a college guy, a college quarterback through and through, and we're seeing that throughout his entire time at Minnesota. But this defense, I think one of the issues, we saw 4 guys play running back for Ohio State. We saw like 5,000 play defense for Ohio State tonight, bro. That's the one thing to me that doesn't make any sense to me. I know you want to get all your linebackers in. You mentioned the offseason, you have guys that you want to try to get, they've earned some time to play. Okay, cool. Bryson Shaw playing safety. Did a phenomenal job. Okay, great. He did a phenomenal job. A couple of touchdown-saving tackles that eventually later in the drive led to touchdowns. So he did his job. It's just the defense got tired. Defense was on the field way too long as well. But you got, 4, 5, 6 linebackers playing. Okay, what are you going to run a 4-3? I think you should have run a 4-3 most of the time in this game anyway, instead of the 4-2-5 you ran, because the personnel sets up and says, well, the 4-3 might be better for this team anyway. And so I'm kind of confused by the rotation, by how many guys played. I think one thing we saw was we did get to see some of the rotation on defensive line that I think people were kind of saying how many guys would play, when would they play. You might think we'll see Jack Sawyer early, not third quarter first, but first or second quarter. JC Tuamaloau saw, I think, second quarter first time he came into the game. You might get more of that in the first quarter down the road. Will we see Noah Potter at some point at D tackle? These are all questions that I have. We got some answers about the D-line rotation, but the amount of guys that played in the linebacker and secondary, I think that drastically hurt the defensive rushing attack, or the ability for Ohio State to stop the run that Minnesota was having. If you play all those guys on defense, Jeff, and Mo Ibrahim is running like he is, as soon as you get into a groove, you come out. The guy that comes in, he's the one that gets beat.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And we talked about this a lot about last year, that we decided, you have to acknowledge that, Ohio State gets the players, they've got the talent with the speed and, strength and everything they need. And, you had Bob Carpenter on talking about it. And a lot of it was just not knowing your position and not knowing. You have to be a unit. You have to be able to, especially in the secondary, to where, a safety has to know that a guy's filling the zone behind him when he comes up to play the run, and vice versa, and all these things. When you're constantly moving the parts around, that's when you get these gaps in the defense and you get these one-on-one matchups. And I think there's not enough to be said in just modern football. The one-on-one matchups are impossible now for defensive backs. Like, I have no idea how you cover a guy one-on-one, because you can't do anything. That's not just Ohio State getting called for penalties. That's every team. Some of our guys I thought played pretty good coverage, but you can't cover guys anymore one-on-one because they have 75% of the advantage. And so, I thought we got into that too much. Now, I did think that, like you touched on it, I thought the rotation on the defensive line was great, because I really thought late in that game they were pretty fresh.
Yes.
Yes. And they were in a Greco-Roman wrestling match for 60 minutes. Minnesota had the ball for almost 40 minutes in that game, and every play is a battle, was a car wreck up front. I really thought the depth of the defensive line was honestly the difference in the game, because, okay, so how do I want to put this delicately? The injury to Ibrahim is also caused by being tackled. Do you see what I'm getting at there? I don't want him to be injured, but you have to keep hitting the running back, and you have to keep tackling him, and you have to just keep tugging and pulling. You can't have him running out of bounds after 10 yards runs. Like, he has to get tackled. And specifically, the play he got injured on, when you see it in slow motion, is because a guy, made a great play and was tackling him. Don't want him to be injured, but I'm saying they held up. I really thought the defensive line, they didn't bring a lot of extra help in, which is what we saw too much last year. We saw way too much of bringing the linebackers up to help in the run game and leaving those huge zones in the middle of the field. Minnesota took advantage of some, but you're going to have those late in the game. And especially like you talked about, Tanner Morgan is going to be able to, exploit those. To me, I think I was happier with the defensive line linebacker combo than most people were. The rotation at linebacker, I honestly at points I was, especially with college and the numbers, I didn't know who was a defensive back and who was a linebacker. That can be a good thing if you have a lot of talent. The one guy that jumped out was Watts. I thought he kind of like just sparked enough times to where I'm like, okay, this guy can be one of those guys. I honestly thought I really felt terrible for Proctor. I have my thumbs. I was actually tweeting out to you, like, finally, our guy, this is what, we've been talking about him for 3 years. It feels like,
Yes,
Jay.
sir.
I was like, he got the interception. He ended this game and then the penalty and all that. It's neither here nor there. But what was good about that play is like the penalty didn't change the play. So Proctor still, in my mind, made the play at least, even though it didn't count. I thought he played his best game. I thought physically he looked better, but I don't let's put it this way. I'm glad we have 10 days before Oregon to look for Tim to look at tape. I think Day and Coombs need to have a discussion. Let's just put it that way.
Jeff, I'm curious. I'm going to share my thoughts here about this little thought that I've had. We have young cornerbacks, and when Minnesota's best receiver is not on the field, you're going up against second, third, fourth, and fifth guys on the depth chart, and you saw that throughout portions of the game. Oregon's going to have better receivers. Penn State's going to have better receivers. Jahan Dotson is nothing to laugh at. Ty Freifogel at Indiana is nothing to laugh at. You're going to play really good receivers down the road. The technique that I saw a lot of the times where these guys are not really turning around fully and they're getting bailed out because the refs aren't calling pass interference, and their technique is, I'm not going to turn my head to look for the ball, but I know I might get a pick or intercept or pass interference, so I'm just going to start swiping down.
Yeah.
Legend Cavazos got one. I got one in the second half. Denzel Burke did it a couple times. You can rant for true freshmen starting. I don't know what happened to Seven Banks at all. I have not heard what happened. But, Jeff, Denzel Burke played phenomenal to be a true freshman cornerback.
Yes.
But Cavazos, Burke, I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head that had those. I think Ryan Watts got one where you're swiping,
yes,
not turning your head, and it should be a pass interference, but it's not. Even somebody on Twitter works for another network, and they were saying that's a pass interference. And I'm just saying, like, you're exactly right. Yep. These guys, especially against Oregon, you're going to get the top official group every week, Jeff. And they missed it tonight. I don't expect those calls to be missed throughout the season because these refs watch film just like you and I do, just like the coaches do. They're going to see your mistakes. They're going to start cracking down on things you mess up on. It's okay. You got past today with a 14-point win over Minnesota. That might not work against Oregon. That might not work against Tulsa. Now you say we're going to beat Tulsa. Okay, great. But you might get those called against Tulsa. You might get those called against other teams. Why? Those are penalties. Not just in my book, in the rule book, in every time I played football, that's a penalty. That's one thing that worries me, is that you have a lot of young guys that are playing cornerback, and Jeff, down the road, those penalties, we saw the interception overturned to come back because of a roughing the passer, which wasn't roughing the passer. To me, I didn't think that was. But those are the things that really, okay, great. Third down stop. No, it's first down because there's a flag on the play because you broke the rule.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. There was a few of those where I'm like, okay, he got away with that one. He got away with that one. And that's fine if that's what they let go. But you're exactly right. The next game, they might call all of those. And you might be playing a receiver that not only do they call it, the guy, he still might catch the ball. Like if you do that against like Chris Olave, he still catches that ball. This bail technique, it's like Coombs thinks that, guys like Okudah, I don't even know. He plays it as if he's got shut down corners no matter what their age is. I don't understand why you can't, I don't know, give a little ground, go into, cover 4 or whatever, help these guys out a little bit, get the ball in front of them. I understand that I know we hated that 10 years ago when we would play a lot of that zone but we would give up, 400 yards passing, but we might have 3 interceptions. That's how the zone typically works. But if you don't have Okuda out there, especially you just brought it up with the way they call penalties, you just can't do it anymore. This bail and swipe technique is, I don't know if Coombs is just a little behind the times or if he's just banking on the refs won't call it, which is, you just said, is ridiculous. It was very concerning. I thought if it's, if that's Indiana on a sunny day, it may be different. And I understand that Ohio State probably scores more too, but still we can't go back to giving up 600 yards passing. I don't it's literally a technique thing. I don't understand why they're teaching it the way they do. Once again, Day and Coombs need to have a serious conversation about this, because I think those guys do look talented. That was the upside of it. I thought they looked like they belong. The Seven Banks mystery, I have no idea what's going on. Nobody has told me yet. It is what it is. You play with who you've got. So you have right for concern there. Once again, we have 10 days to fix it. It's a little nerve-wracking for sure.
Hey, guys, we're going to wrap up this show with just Jeff and I giving our final thoughts about the next game. Week 1, you got to win, 14-point win. There's a lot to be happy about, a lot to work on, a lot of plays that were good, a lot of plays that didn't go as planned, not executed properly. Jeff, I'll start with you here. Going into the Oregon game, you got a few days to prepare for that, about a week and a half to prepare for that, which is amazing. Your O-line, D-line, banged up. Not saying banged up like you're going to miss the game, but that was a dogfight, bro. That was a dogfight all night long. So you get some extra days to rest and prepare your body for the next game against an Oregon team that has better talent on offense, better talent on defense, potentially top 3, number 1 overall draft pick in Kayvon Thibodeau. Offensive line of Oregon is better. So you're going to have to up your ante. The pluses for Ohio State, they're going up against a young quarterback in Anthony Brown, who is young like CJ Stroud. So there is some similarities for both teams. What is one thing you're looking forward to going into next week's game?
The main thing I want to see is, did Stroud learn, like what is he going to learn from looking at the video? Because, everything looked very similar to what we've seen the last 2 years with Fields. The way they, especially in the rollouts and then guys getting open. Olave and Wilson are going to be able to get open. I really think they underutilized Smith and Jigba. And I thought they did that all last year too. I can't quite figure it out because you can't guard the guy. So that's one of those things. But does Stroud, look at does he just, like we say, does he look at the tape? Does he see like, oh my gosh, like right here, like coming back across the zone, Ruckert's wide open for 15. And I saw him learn that as the game went on, obviously. Like he realized, like, the faster I can get it into these guys' hands, the faster they can get upfield. So it's just the growth in Stroud. Does he come out? Does he calm down? I think that how our defensive line, how they react to a more, I don't call it a standard offensive line. What Minnesota runs isn't out of the box. It's not like as far as like Army or Navy, but it is a little unique in college football. It's going to be totally different. It's going to be more of a 4-on-4 thing or something like that. And then once again, I just who walks out, who's the starting linebackers? We've talked about linebackers for a year, even last year during the game. So that's the things I want to look for. The pluses are, I think the running game looked pretty solid. I thought the offensive line were pretty good. I think the defensive line is going to really cause a lot of problems. And once again, I want to see how Oregon plays this weekend before I really figure it out. But basically, how much can Stroud learn in the next 6 days of practice?
I think one of the things, a few things on offense, a couple on defense. I'll try to make them quick. Once again, I gotta say, you guys, I am so glad you guys are coming in and just enjoying this show. A couple of you guys have commented. Keep commenting there in the chat. It's a great way for us to kind of recap a season opening win. Offensively, slow things down for Stroud. Allow for the pre-snap manipulation of the defense to allow for the post-snap to be a whole lot easier for him. I know I say that all the time, but if you can do either some motion or the read stuff that manipulates things for Stroud, it slows the game down for him. And you saw that with the Henderson screen pass. I thought it was a swing pass. Really was a screen because Rutgers was out in front very quickly. You saw how that really opened things up. So manipulation of the offense, of the defense for the offense that allows Stroud to ease into things. Give me 2 running backs. I'm getting kind of selfish. Give me 2 running backs. Give me Williams. Give me Henderson. Maybe give me Crawley or Teague. I think I like Crawley better, but he was later in the game. Teague had the better yards, more touches. So give me the 2. Maybe give me a 3rd and let the rotation roll out that way defensively. Figure things out at linebacker.
Yeah.
Because I think next week is one of those games. If you're trying to roll out and play everybody and their mama on defense at linebacker, I haven't seen – I'm waiting to see what Anthony Brown does as well on offense. But if he's a guy that's an average or above average quarterback and he's a little athletic and he can move around and roll in the pocket, our linebackers showed too much pre-snap, bro, and that's going to hurt you next week against Anthony Brown if he's really that guy that Oregon needs to win the Pac-12 conference this year. So those just things I'm thinking about. I know I can tell you got a little piggyback off something I said.
Well, a couple things. I thought, you touched on it. They went away from it. I thought the motion early in the game was great. Just running. We've talked about a lot with Alabama. Motion a guy, figure out where your mismatches are. I thought that was awesome. And maybe that's something they went away from because they don't want to show it. I don't know how brave Day is, but I thought early when they were, especially Ruckert motioning, I was like, oh, I love this. And then they kind of went away from it. That's probably because they don't want to show too much, which I think is risky when you're down at half. And you touched on it there too. If we're playing in a dry track with a running quarterback, I think there was he could have really exposed Ohio State tonight. Tanner Morgan decided not to for whatever reason, athletic ability, choice, whatever it was. But a mobile quarterback, I think, would have really, really caused some serious problems because you picked up on already. Our defensive backs got their back turned. If one of these guys gets outside the pocket, he might be gone. So I just want to you touched on a couple of really important things there that I hope that they see as well as we did.
So, guys, coming up, I got to say first, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. First live show we've done here for Locked On Buckeyes. I really appreciate it. Coming up for next week, before I just let Jeff know we can catch some of his work, coming up next week, there'll be no show Monday. It is Labor Day. I normally don't take holidays off. I'm taking this holiday off, so I'm going to do some rest, relaxation. We're going to have our film session on Tuesday. No guest this coming Tuesday, a film session. We're going to talk a little bit about the linebackers. I know I'm going to hit one of the plays that the running backs haven't figured out what their third play will be. So one segment for every play. So you're getting a lot of time for me to slow down and to roll through each play to execute and show proper and poor execution for each play. Jeff, that's coming up Tuesday for here from Locked On Buckeyes. What's coming up now for you and some shows that you host?
Well, which is great. So, I'm part of the offtheballnetwork.com, which is really great. And what I love about this is I do the Jeff Needs Sports podcast, but a division of that is the Buckeye Remix. So essentially, I sort of do what you're talking about, but I'm not quite as professional because I love the Buckeyes. It's the one team that I allow myself to be kind of a fan of. So essentially what I do is I'll rewatch the game probably tonight or tomorrow morning, and I grade, different levels of it. And then I put that out. I have a little fun with it. I'm serious about it. I'm more critical than a lot of Buckeye fans, but I also take it with a grain of salt, and appreciate it. So we kind of do what we just did. And, I give a report card out. That's about a half hour every week. It's usually Sunday after the game. So this week's a little different. But, check out, Jeff Needs Sports. Check out the Buckeye Remix. And check out offtheballnetwork.com. And I really appreciate you having me on, Jay. You're doing wonderful things here for Locked On Buckeyes. It's a daily listen. It's downloaded every morning when I get up, and it starts with my drive to work. You're doing a great job for the Buck community, and we really appreciate you, man.
My guy, Jeff Hunt, I greatly appreciate that. As always, you guys can follow me on Twitter at JSteven07. Like I mentioned, no show Monday. The next show will be on Tuesday. Film session. Not sure if they'll be a guest next week with the holiday. Still trying to work out some kinks with that, but we will start preparation for the next game against Oregon next week because that's a big one. Minnesota's big, but Oregon is the season opener, the home opener for the Buckeyes, not season opener. 102,000 strong Gus, Joel Klatt, and Jenny Taps on the call. Guys, it doesn't get much better than this.